What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I have the Nintendo 64 cleaning and restoration video. So as always, guys, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And if you guys are ready, here we go. So first off, you're going to need 3 screwdrivers. You're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver like this one, a precision screwdriver like this one, and actually this one's going to be for 2 screws specifically on the board itself. And then you're also going to be needing a Nintendo security bit screwdriver like this one coming up. I will definitely put a link in the description below where I got this one. I actually got that one from Amazon. It came in a set. So you guys are going to need those 3 screwdrivers. So if you guys are ready, I'm going to be removing the expansion pack. So when you remove the expansion pack, be very, very careful. Now I tend to use my security bit screwdriver, so some people might not like that, but just be very, very careful when you pry up on it. It should come right out because you could possibly damage the case itself. Just inspect it to make sure it's not super dirty or corroded or broken or like that. Then once you determine that, then go ahead and set it aside and move on to the next part of the video, which is going to be flipping over the console and going and removing the 6 security screws at the bottom here. So when you're taking off these screws, make sure you don't lose any, because you don't want to have to try to look for these somewhere. Now I think they possibly may sell them like at Amazon, but you never know. So go ahead and remove the 6 screws and put them aside, so that way you know exactly where they're at, so you can put it back in later on whenever you're going to put it back together. So what I like to do is take off all the 6 screws and the 2 at the top corners for the feet. I like leaving them in there, so that way it's a less likely chance of losing those. So once you get those 6 screws out, you can go ahead and flip it over, and then see if they all come out. Now there may be 1 or 2 that may be stuck in there, so just go ahead and try to unscrew it again and do a little shake like that, and you should get them all out fine. Next step is to go ahead and flip it over, and we're going to just pull the top off. So it should just come right up, so just be very, very gentle, so that way you don't by chance break anything. Now if it doesn't come up when you first try to pull it up gently, it's probably because one of the screws is still in there. So just make sure you get all those 6 screws out. So it should just pop up like that, and then now you can take a look at the top half of the machine and just verify to make sure nothing's broken inside. Now you could always take off this, I guess it's called like a holder or something for the cartridge slot. So just make sure you, or actually it might be called a cartridge slot, believe it or not. So go ahead and if you want to take that to clean that, go ahead and remove the 2 gold screws that are right there. But if not, like I'm going to be doing, I'm just going to be cleaning up the power button and the reset button. So all you have to do is basically squeeze the sides and they'll come right up. So just be very, very careful though when you do this, because you don't want to break the little tabs on the side, because then you're not going to be able to put it back on. So again, just squeeze the sides and push out, and they should come right out like so. So alright, you can take this time to kind of look and see if you're going to need to be deep cleaning these, or just kind of rinsing them with water, soap and water that is, just to clean them up. So just make sure you keep an eye on that, see how you're going to have to clean those. Also just look at the rest of the top half of the console and just debate whether you're going to be taking this thing off or not. But if not, like I said, just set it aside and get it ready to get cleaned once you get the base of the console taken apart as well. So on the base of the console here, you're going to have multiple screws along the edges and then along the center right here. Just make sure you keep track of all these screws. Now what I like to do is put them on the mat underneath the console that I'm cleaning, so that way you can make sure you have a great idea of where you're going to put the screws back. Now sometimes this does not work very well because you have bigger screws, but in this case they're small screws, so you can actually just lay them down in your little setup that you have, and that's why I like using a car mat to do this kind of work. Remember that precision screwdriver I was telling you about? It's going to be used for these 2 screws here towards the front of the console. So just go ahead and remove these two, and again make sure that you keep track of these two specifically because they're a little bit smaller, thinner and smaller than the other ones. So once you get those two screws off, set them aside, and the next part is just kind of going over the actual motherboard and all the parts in here. Now you can tell from the video that there's a little bit of damage, like I guess it's rust damage or whatnot, maybe condensation damage. Now I probably won't try to scrub so much of it off because I feel like I don't want to damage the metal here. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just kind of wipe it down and clean it up the best I can, maybe clean any dust. This heatsink right here, like I said, the way I was able to remove it was just kind of to pull up on it, and it came right out. Again, if anything's sticking or stuck, that means that there's probably a screw still in there. So just be very, very careful. Don't pull it up super hard. Now, so when you're actually taking out the board, you're going to have to remove that. As you can see, you're going to have to remove that plastic piece at the top for the AV cable before you're going to be able to actually just lift up on the board itself to remove it. So go ahead and inspect that piece, make sure nothing's broken as well, and now you should be able just to take it right off. So just kind of make sure, if you're not going to be taking apart anything else, just kind of make sure everything's intact. There's no broken LED. I mean, the LED's not broken or anything else, because you definitely don't want to lose any parts that may come off. So another thing that I'm probably going to end up doing is cleaning up the controller ports, as well as the pin connector for, I think it's called the pin connectors, or the cartridge slot, or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to be actually taking Q-tip and some rubbing alcohol to go in and clean those up. So I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to move on to the base of the console. It's a little dusty, so I'm going to run that through the water with soap and water. And then as well, there's two little brackets. Make sure you don't lose those. Those will fall out if you are not careful. They're a little bit bigger in size, so you'll be able to find them if you drop them. But also the white little connection at the bottom there for the LED, make sure you don't lose that as well. So let me go and get these cleaned up, and I'll be right back. Alright guys, so here we are. I just finished cleaning and drying the pieces of the console. Now I'm just going to stress, make sure that the console is completely dry when you put it back together, because you definitely don't want to cause any issues with water getting into the actual components of the console that you're cleaning. So just kind of inspect it to make sure there's no water left over, and once you determine that, then on the base here, make sure the pieces are back in the correct spots, which is these two gold pieces, as well as the piece at the bottom for the LED light. So once you get that all squared away, you're going to go ahead and work on double checking to make sure the actual motherboard and everything is together correctly. Now I did, like I said, wipe down these parts here. I didn't really deep clean them because I don't think I can get any of that rust out. But I also used the Q-tip to clean the controller ports and the cartridge slot. So all you're going to do is basically just set it back down the way when you pulled it out. Now the bottom, right there where the controller ports are at, the little squares that go right into a little channel there. I don't know if you can see it on that close up there for a second, but basically it goes right into that little channel. Now you're going to want to put this metal heatsink back on, and all you do is just slide it back down and you're good to go. Now as far as for the back where the AV cable goes, connection goes, you're going to want to obviously you can see I'm having a little bit of trouble, but you're going to want to actually put the controller port you're going to actually want to put the AV port in first and then set it down, and it'll go down just perfectly fine. So next step is going to be actually putting the screws back in the board to secure the motherboard into the console. Again, the way I have it set up is I just grab the screws and put them right in. So let me go ahead and get that started, and then I should be back on very shortly. Again guys, I just want to reiterate, do not over tighten the screws because you could damage the board. So once you get all these screws in, make sure you don't obviously have lost any. You'll be able to tell once you start screwing everything back in. But once you get everything screwed in properly, you can just kind of double check to make sure all of them are actually in and seated correctly, and then you can go ahead and get to putting the top portion of the N64 back on the bottom half. I can add just do a visual inspection to make sure that everything's perfectly aligned and right, so that way when you put the top cover back on, it goes in pretty much smoothly. So next step is going to be actually putting the start button and the reset button back in. Now again, like I said, you have to be very, very careful because the side little pieces there will break if you're a little forceful on it. So just kind of just put it back in and push down on it very gently, and it should go right back in. Now obviously there are two different type of connections, so you won't get them mixed up. So go ahead and like I said, just kind of put it in, and it should slide right back in like so. And then you can go ahead and do the power button as well. And then once you get those two squared away, then you can actually again put the top half of the machine back on, and it should slide on perfectly fine. But if you have any issues with it going back in, you want to double check to make sure that everything is seated correctly and there's nothing that's off centered or unscrewed or anything like that. So now is a good time to kind of just double check that as well. So I'm going to bring back in the base of the N64, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the top back on, and it should go right on, right above it. So just go ahead and just put the cover back on, and if it goes on correctly and perfectly, then you will definitely not see any edges that are coming up out of the console. So just kind of double check that. If everything is good, flip it on over, and you're going to want to put all the six of the security screws back in there. Now I usually put these two in first and then go from there. So let's go ahead and get all these screws put back in. So last but not least, you're going to want to put the expansion pack back in. Now again, you can just make sure that it's dry and make sure there's no damage on it before you put it back in. And then what you want to do is with two fingers, you're just going to push down on it very, very gently, like so, and it should be seated correctly. Now if for some reason the N64 does not work properly, it's probably because this thing is not seated correctly back into the board. So if you have any issues with that, just make sure you remove the cover, remove the expansion pack, and then you can put it back in and you should be good to go. So the next step is going to be connecting everything, the power supply and the AV cable, and go ahead and putting in a game and a controller and testing it out. So let's get to it. Alright, that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And also leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know what you think of the Nintendo 64 and if it was your favorite console growing up. And as always guys, we'll see you next time.